is Off Script with Trish Glose, intimate interviews with interesting people. In front of my microphone today is Nick Ellis, my friend Nick Ellis. Hi, Nick Ellis. You are the owner of Opposition Brewing.
Yes.
In Medford.
Yeah, that's true.
You and your wife, Erin.
Correct.
And, I mean, can we count Dennis?
Yeah, he's an owner.
Okay.
Penny, too.
And Penny, exactly. All right. We're going to talk a lot about beer.
Okay.
And specifically
Perfect.
Opposition.
All right.
But first, like I always like to start off with, where are you from originally?
Well, I was born in Southern California, Glendale, to be specific. Didn't spend a lot of time there. Don't remember it super well. Obviously, I was an infant.
That is a fantastic story, first of all. I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Spent another very brief time in Orange County, and then moved to Sacramento when I was 2. So really, where I'm from is more like Sacramento. Yeah.
Do you call it Sacktown?
No, I don't.
Does anyone call it Sacktown?
I don't know that people call. They shouldn't. If they do, they probably shouldn't call it that.
Isn't that interesting? We have all these South Carolina. I call it South Kakalaki. Portland. Everybody's like, "Are you going to P-Town or PDX?"
Right. No, I've never heard.
Medi.
I think
Medford.
I've heard that term before, but I personally have never referred to it as Sacktown.
Well, that's because you're smart. You're a smart, intelligent person. Okay, so you grew up with a sibling?
Yeah, I have an older sister.
A sister.
Yeah.
How much older?
3 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Did you guys get along?
I think fairly well, based on stories I've heard of other siblings. I feel like she and I had a pretty decent, leave me alone, stay out of my way sort of childhood, which of course, like all siblings, evolved into a very close adult relationship. But
Totally. Well, y'all are close now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, we chat weekly. Text is a fantastic thing because neither of us have a lot of time to talk on the phone, but we always can send each other a quick text here and there.
I feel like texting has saved a lot of relationships and friendships.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
I hate talking on the phone.
Don't call me. What are phones for? They're for texting.
Okay,
right?
So do you do, you're texting with someone for a few minutes, and then they call, and you're like, why are you calling me?
Yeah, I just ignore the call if they're trying to call me. I'm like, I was texting you for a reason. It was because I didn't want to talk to you.
You hit the button to silence the ring.
Or if you don't want them to know you're ignoring them, you just let it keep ringing. Oh, I don't know why it didn't come through.
That's the other brilliant thing with cell phones now. If someone calls you don't want to talk to, and they're like,
right.
I called you 4 times. You're like, something's wrong with my
I don't
phone.
know. It didn't come through. Next time, text me though. I'm usually really good about those.
And no one questions
right?
you.
Oh, it's the
technology. It's so weird.
Fantastic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah. That's the one good thing we can say about technology.
Right.
It saved us from some
the
awkward.
only one good
that's
thing.
it.
Yeah.
What was childhood like for you?
Great. Pretty mellow. Sacramento, I was there from 2 to I think 8 or 9, and then we moved to Redding. And I spent all of my years up until college there, the rest of my childhood there. And it was a lot, so I really kind of considered growing up in Redding. Because Sacramento, I have memories obviously of it, but nothing real formative, you know what I mean? So Redding's kind of where I call, the place that I grew up, and it was a lot like Medford was when I moved here in 2002. So I loved it there, and had a great childhood there growing up.
It has not. Mother Nature has not been nice to Redding this past summer.
No, that area in general.
That whole area.
No, horrible.
So sad.
Yeah, I was down there for when the car fire was exploding. I happened to be already going down to visit my folks, and it was like he's got this island in his kitchen. We had this map out, and I had a chat going with all of my old high school friends who, like me, still had family living in the area, and we were all sharing information and circling things on the map, and who's here and who's there, and is everybody safe, and kind of had this little mini war room going in my dad's house during the peak of the car fire,
right.
Which at the time we thought, wow, it can't get any worse than this, and then of course this campfire happened, and oh my gosh, it was just horrible.
Well, one thing I kept thinking of, Paradise, that's where Joe Moxley was born. He was born in Paradise, California.
Was he really? I have not talked with him since.
Yes, I haven't either. I've been meaning to reach out to him.
I will have to walk over today and have a chat with him.
Please do, because I don't know how much family or friends he still has in Paradise, but that whole community is devastated.
Yeah, it was horrible.
It's
Yeah, just
super
took
sad.
It all out,
it's really
for
sad.
sure.
So you went to high school then in Reading.
Yeah, Central
Okay.
Valley High School.
Mascot?
Falcons.
Okay. Do you
Yeah.
remember the fight song?
No.
Even
I
if
would-
you did, like you would sing it for me.
Yeah, I wouldn't sing it for you, but I wasn't the worst kid in high school, but I wasn't the best kid either. So I probably had zero interest in learning a fight song. I was more interested in getting out to the lake.
Right. So good student, decent student.
Decent student, like just not quite good enough to get into the smart kids class.
Right. Do you ever look back though and just think, man, if I would have applied myself?
Probably.
All the
Yeah,
things I could have done.
Gotten in. I actually had more fun. I was in journalism. Did the newspaper, the school newspaper, and I remember one time I applied to get into one of the honors classes and got denied and was really pissed off about it. So I wrote this real nasty article in the school newspaper about it, and I got in trouble from the I don't know whether the faculty advisor because she took heat from the board because I was talking bad about the honors program, which you don't do, apparently.
Well, I'm sorry, lady. That's called journalism.
Yeah, right?
Hashtag journalism.
I was like Woodward there, breaking
Totally.
breaking the story.
just like Bob.
Yeah,
just like him.
Bob.
So then what came after high school? Were you wanting to go off to college? Did you want to start something different?
I knew college was always in the cards. I can't say that in high school I was super focused on what I wanted to major in high school or in college. My parents got divorced when I was, I think, like halfway through my sophomore year of high school.
Okay.
And by, late junior, early senior year, I think I had kind of focused in on, this is going to be funny for you who knows me, marriage and family therapy. I was thinking I would want to do that and I'd be good at it, right? You're trying not to laugh. Because it's quite amusing now to think back on, and how could I possibly have been interested in that? But, that experience, I think, shaped me at that point in my life. And so
The experience of your parents getting divorced?
Of the divorce. And so when I did finally end up going, I started as a sociology major with the intent of getting a marriage and family therapy license ultimately.
I think I've talked a lot about divorce on this podcast just because I'm a kid of divorce, so it's something that resonates with me. But I don't think if you're 8 or 18 or 38, the divorce of your parents is just weird.
Yeah.
Kinda.
Yeah, it is definitely weird. I think even at that age, how old are you when you're a sophomore? I don't know, 15?
Yeah.
Or something like that?
Ugh, that's awkward.
It was rough, but, at the same time, I think even then my sister and I both knew it was for the best. And so while I certainly didn't take it lightly, ultimately I knew, this needed to happen.
Right. It's kind of like, the scene from Talladega Nights where they say they're getting a divorce and the two kids are like, 2 Christmases!
Right.
And they get super excited. And, Chris Dennett was on the podcast and he was talking about his parents getting divorced. And they're like, now we just want to make sure it's not your fault.
Right.
And he's like, of course it's not my fault.
Yeah.
I'm perfect.
No, I had no illusions that
Same.
My sister or I had anything to do with it. It was definitely an issue between my folks.
Exactly.
So.
Even at 8 years old, I knew this is not me.
Right.
This is you two, and that's totally fine.
Right.
And then looking back on it too as an adult, you just want to tell your parents, thank you. That was the best thing you could have done for us and our family.
I don't know if I've thanked them for it, but I've certainly had conversations with them about how it was so obviously the best thing they could have done for each other in their
You don't want to
their
grow
lives.
up with two people who just don't want to be together.
Yeah.
That's not fun.
So.
Anywho, so
anyway, so that happened, and so I decided to go off, and I ended up staying at home for a couple of reasons. For about a year and a half at the junior college, getting the GEs out of the way.
Right.
Finances, obviously, I think a lot of kids probably. It would do a lot of kids well to consider that as an option.
Agreed.
So I did the GE at the junior college. Went off to UC Santa Cruz. simply because it was a fantastic looking campus. I remember
It's not bad.
I talked to an advisor, where should I go for sociology? He's like, it doesn't really matter. Go someplace that you think is cool. And I'm like, all right, that's rad. So
UC Santa Cruz, not a bad place to go.
No, not a bad place. I scored this rad dorm room as a junior transfer coming in, like on the corner of the building with windows on all the corners, overlooking the ocean. My roommate and I hated each other, so he hooked up with some gal and moved out like midway through the term.
Sweet.
Me, being the industrious individual I am, disassembled all of his furniture, stashed it underneath my bed. So I had this like giant pad, and we all would hang out in.
This little bachelor pad.
That's right. It was my little college bachelor pad.
Awesome.
And did sociology for a while until I realized that was stupid. Got advised to switch over to psychology, which is, not a whole lot different from sociology, and ended up graduating with a degree in psychology.
Now, when you graduated, was it like, okay, now what?
No, because I had already established myself with an outreach program, outreach center at the university. Had a good job. They hired me on after school. By the time I graduated with a degree in psychology, I knew this is going to be a pointless degree for me. There's no way I'm using this. It's just something to put on my application when I start applying for jobs.
Okay.
So, it wasn't like I was disappointed. Oh, I'm not going to be a psychologist. Well, plus I knew, and you know me, I couldn't sit and listen to people tell me about their problems and actually try and help them with those problems.
Right.
I don't have the personality for it. And unfortunately, I didn't learn that until I was already graduating.
Right.
And it was too late to go back and start over again. So I got hired on by the university and ran an outreach program for UC Santa Cruz for a couple years.
Awesome. You met Aaron at UC Santa Cruz.
Yeah, that's actually the only beneficial thing, other than being able to list it on a resume, that came out of my psychology degree, because my wife too was a psych major. So
really?
We ended up
both psych majors.
Yeah,
I didn't know that.
both psych majors, both not doing anything in psychology.
That's fantastic.
It'd be funny to do a poll on all undergrad psych majors ever in the history of undergrad psych majors and see what percentage of them are actually doing something in psychology.
Yeah.
My guess is it's probably pretty small.
I would agree with you there. So what brought you guys up to Southern Oregon then?
So I was working for the university down there, and Erin at the time was managing the apartment complex we lived in, because she had graduated too. And I remember, so everything, our apartment, my job, and the grocery store were really within sort of a square mile of each other.
Fantastic.
Very close, it's Santa Cruz.
Right.
And I was at work, 5 o'clock, called Erin. I said, funny, as I'm in the beer industry now, I was like, hey, I'm out of beer at home. I got to go to the store. So I'm going to drive over there real quick before I come home, and then, we'll start dinner. So I got my car, and it took me, I think it was like 45 minutes or an hour to get the less than 1 mile it was to the Safeway to get the beer. I came home. I don't know how long it took me to get home then at that point, probably another 45 minutes. I basically could have walked the whole thing in less than half the time.
And this is based on just the traffic.
The traffic, it's Bay Area, commute traffic. So I got home and I was like, I'm out. I'm done. We're out of here. I can't handle this anymore. Because I hate traffic. I'm spoiled here now.
I know. And you're just a wee bit impatient.
Oh, just a little bit.
Just a
right?
teeny
I
tiny
think so.
bit.
So that happened, and I started looking for work. I think probably that evening.
Really?
And I started looking from Redding north.
Okay.
Initially, we had wanted to get up to Washington. My in-laws own some property up there. We loved the Port Orchard, Bremerton, Port Orchard area. And so I started looking for work up there. And because I was working for a university already, I was looking in the college university sector.
Yeah.
Up there. And, between Redding and Eugene, there's not a lot going on in that sector of work to begin with. So, as it happened, I stumbled upon an opening at Southern Oregon University, applied for it, and got it. And we were moving up this way.
Nice.
Within probably 6 months or so.
Yeah, when was that? What year was that?
So we moved up here in October of 2002.
Okay.
Yeah, I think a big fire had just happened before then.
Yes, the biscuit fire.
I remember pictures up in the. My job was in the an admin assistant for the university president at the time, Dr. Zinser, and I remember she had these pictures up in her office with like the hills across the highway from Ashland like on fire. It was nuts.
Yeah, I actually had graduated June of 2002 or May of 2002. That same, obviously, it's the same year. It's 2002. Right. Got the job here in June, and that summer was my initiation into the broadcast television world because
exciting.
It was crazy. I mean, I was literally on a fire every single day starting at the end of July. Yeah. Every single day I was on a fire scene.
It was a crazy year, I hear.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So,
not as crazy as obviously we've seen this year.
No, nothing like.
It's been kind of nuts. Yeah. But yeah, that was the lovely biscuit fire.
Yeah.
One of the largest in state history at that time. So, So yeah, we both moved here in 2002.
Yeah, it was a great year, right?
How long were you at SOU?
Over a decade.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was that.
Yeah. I think it was officially just over a decade. Towards the end there, because the economy was just horrible towards the end. And I had already survived a number of layoffs. I had jumped around in the university. I wasn't in the president's office the entire time. I had sort of jumped around. Ultimately, I ended up over in student affairs. And my position there was finally eliminated without something else for me to jump into. But I had a great boss at the time, and he was able to negotiate, as part of the negotiations, to hire me on with the food service contractor that took over the food service operation at SOU.
Okay.
So I ended up working for them as a controller, doing the books for I think it was like three years or so. Before ultimately they eliminated that position, so I finally became the victim of layoffs at SOU. I survived a little bit longer because of the contract food service company that came in.
So then how did this whole beer thing for you start? Because were you working at SOU when you were kind of thinking about this, or?
Yeah. So prior to being laid off, ultimately, Aaron and I were randomly in Blackbird one day, I think just killing some time. We were bored. We were sort of window shopping, and I walked into the homebrew section. I was looking at the stuff. I was like, I don't know how to make anything. I'd been in like administration my entire life.
Mm-hmm.
So woodworking skills. My dad taught me to work on cars a little bit, but by work on cars, I mean, I could change oil and spark plugs and tires and all the basic stuff like that, but it's not like I could rebuild an engine kind of thing.
Sure.
No real craft ability, can't make furniture, don't have any woodworking skills, so I was like, I don't know how to make anything, right? I should learn how to make something so that I can have something to produce. I know how to produce something.
Yeah.
So we bought this 5-gallon bucket homebrew kit and started brewing beer at home, and that, I have sort of in addition to being a little bit impatient, you might not know this, I'm a little sort of obsessive about things, right?
Yeah, I did know that.
Yeah, it's shocking to some people. So the 5-gallon bucket quickly evolved into the giant tanks at my house, giant for homebrewing standards, and going from just using like these liquid extract kits to all grain mills and sacks of grain and bags of hops at the house, taking up most of the garage.
Right. I mean, you jumped in once you started making beer. You guys you really. For you, sort of jumped in. You were like...
Yeah, it was... I mean, even on the homebrew scale, it was like 6 months, and I was already brewing, 10, 15... I can't even really remember now what my size of my system ultimately ended up being, but I'm, splitting it with other people to kind of share costs, putting it in kegs rather than bottling it, just because it was simpler to manage that kind of volume in a keg, and...
The people that were drinking this beer... Because it wasn't just you. You had other people drinking.
People would come over and brew with me, and Dennis being my business partner, Dennis being one of them, he would come over and we would brew and drink and eat, and it was kind of like a party. And he got into it, but got into it in the sense that he didn't want to do it at his house, but liked it so much that he would brew or like participate in the brew with me at my place when we brewed. And
Okay.
So I sort of taught him all of that stuff. And
But did you guys like at some point, you were tasting this beer, you just made a batch or whatever, and you're tasting it the next day or whatever, how that works. And did you just kind of go like, this is really good. Is it just me, or is this really good? Hey everybody, is this really good?
No, I don't know that happened. I think what happened was, I got my ultimate layoff notice, and it was fortunate because it was sort of it was like, hey, in 6 months, or we're not going to renew this position in the next 6 months, or maybe it's even been a year, thinking back. And I sat down with Aaron, and I was like, what are we going to do? I was like, right now, there's no jobs for someone like me in the Valley. No one's going to hire me as a bookkeeper right now. So what do you think we should do? And we just kind of had this conversation. I was like, well, people seem to like the beer. I guess we don't have kids. We don't have any debt really other than the house payment. Why don't we try and open a brewery and see what happens? I mean, I think in order to get a job, I'm going to have to make a job. So maybe this brewery thing is the way to go. And she, supported me, God bless her, 100%.
Yeah.
And so we told
that's a pretty big venture.
Oh yeah, for sure.
That's not like
I've obviously never owned a business. I had some management
sure
background in my previous work, so I knew how to sort of manage money and manage people. But owning a business is a whole different thing.
Okay.
So it was scary for sure, but exciting
yes,
at the same time.
Because and I think I was just going to say, your path with work, and this goes for a lot of people, I think you sort of fall into something and you start doing it, and then you just kind of think to yourself, I really love doing fill in the blank.
Yeah.
I really love doing this. This would be great if I could get paid to do this thing right here.
Right. Yeah, you're right. And of course, that is what we thought. We're like, oh my gosh, we love making beer anyway. How cool would it be if we could make money off of it? And so what's funny about that is I think that's the way it is with any hobby that you're really into.
Yeah.
And then you start, if you choose to, you start doing it for money. And you're like, wow, this is work. And it becomes,
Yeah.
Dennis and I still to this day love doing what we do. I don't want to do anything else. And we really have a passion for beer making. But, at least early on when we first started it, people are like, man, this must be rad. This is the fun. And I would tell them, it's not the party. It's not the party we used to have at my house where, we're making pizza rolls and drinking pints while we were brewing a batch of beer.
Yep.
This is our business now. This needs to work or we don't get paid.
Exactly.
And so it sort of transitions to a job you love, but it's no longer there is no such thing, I think, as a hobby you get paid for.
Totally
unless you
agree.
do it just kind of, let me throw up my, bead necklace on Etsy, and it's not really your source of income. Once you turn a hobby into your source of income, it changes the dynamic of it a little bit.
Well, I was listening to some famous person give a commencement speech at a college university. I don't remember the person, but I just remember them saying, if you get to find your passion and get to do that every day and get paid for it, that's fantastic. However, at the end of the day, it's still a job.
Yeah.
And it's still something that you're going to have to go to.
Right.
And there's going to be days that you don't want to go to that job, even
Right.
though in your heart you love it.
Yeah.
People say the same thing. Your job must be so cool. Most days it is cool.
Right.
I get to be on TV and read the news, and I'm the first to know about stuff that happens in this valley. But at the end of the day, it's still a job. It's
Right.
still something that I have to come to every single day.
And there's the added stress of it being a job versus being
Right.
a hobby. Oh, if this batch doesn't turn out, whatever, I'll just dump it. Whereas, if this batch doesn't turn
Yeah.
out, oh my gosh, that's however much dollars and cents that we don't get to make.
Well, you just
now.
said if it's still something that you have to get paid for. So if at some point this company's like, we don't like you anymore, Trish Glose, you're out.
Right.
I'm done.
Right.
So, I mean, yeah, it's still, there's a lot of pressure, even though it is something that you absolutely love doing.
Yeah.
It's still a job.
And we love, we absolutely still love it. We love being there. We love interacting with people. Despite both of our odd personalities that Dennis and I have.
Dennis, he's calling you odd.
Amazingly, people still like us. I don't know why, but so we're still having fun. And
yeah. Well, let's go back a little bit.
Sure.
You guys decide to do this, and then Apocalypse Brewing opens when?
Right.
2015?
No, 12.
Okay.
We just celebrated our 6-year anniversary, so
Okay.
September of 2012.
Right.
Yeah.
Because I remember Chuck and I see this sandwich board sign right
Yeah.
by, because we used to
The
live.
only sign I was allowed to put out.
Yes. We used to live over here, so I remember seeing it. We were, stopped by, and we're like, let's go check it out.
Yeah.
And
The brewery in a warehouse.
Yes.
Let's go take a look what's going on in this guy's garage.
Right. We did a flight of beer. We wanted to taste your beer, and we were both like, at that point in our lives, pretty savvy about beer and both thinking like, this is really good. And then we got hooked. Like, I think a lot of people got hooked.
Yeah. Yeah. We have a lot of friends right now that were the first group of people that come in that we still have been friends with for years now.
And still loyal customers.
And still loyal customers, regulars, yeah.
So you just celebrated 6 years.
It was 6 years in September. Yeah.
Okay. So what was the reasoning for calling the brewery Apocalypse Brewing?
Well, I remember how we came up with the name was Aaron and I were camping in the middle of winter during our planning stages. It was raining. We like to do that. We have a little camper we pull out. Mm-hmm. And we were sitting in there. It was cold and rainy outside, and we were playing games. And I was like, hey, let's talk about, brewery names. Let's start brainstorming brewery names. And so we kind of came up with this list. And sort of Apocalypse sort of floated to the top simply because, again, something you may not know about me, Trish, is I kind of can be a little bit cynical about things at times.
What?
Right? I'm blowing your mind today with all these shocking
You're releasing
revelations.
all of these secrets on this podcast today.
And so we were it was sort of a joke because, I'm watching the news. I'm like, oh, it's the end. This is it. This is happening, whatever.
Yeah.
Some tornado here or some,
Yeah.
massive earthquake there. I'm like, oh, the apocalypse is here. It's coming. This would be something I would just kind of joke with Aaron about as we'd be watching the news at night every night. And so I don't even remember if it was her or me that came up with Apocalypse Brewing, but that was the one that we're like, yeah, that kind of fits you, Nick, the best. Let's go with that.
It really
had
does.
nothing more to do with that than it was a funny sort of quirky joke.
Yeah.
Between Aaron and I, based on my personality.
And then all the beers sort of kind of fell into that same theme.
Yeah, we kind of named, once we came up with the
apocalyptic.
Apocalypse name, we sort of
Yeah.
did the names of the beers after,
Yeah.
let's name them whatever, Apocalypsy. I
So,
just made up a word there.
I think a lot of people would agree with me, especially those early Apocalypse Brewing customers. We were just like, what a great name. And
Right.
we had all these like fun nicknames for Apocalypse Brewing and, the bunker, it was still the bunker
Yeah.
and all this kind of stuff. And then you just...
Yeah, we had a little run-in with another brewery.
we can mention, right?
I don't know. Can we? You
Sure.
tell me. Is
It's
it allowed?
10 Barrel.
It was 10 Barrel, yeah.
10 Barrel just said
It's
basically...
funny. We had been to 10 Barrel that previous February because I think the kerfuffle sort of took place December-ish. So the previous February for Zwickelmania, we had been up in Bend because we go every year and ran into the owners of 10 Barrel and Chris, and I can't remember what the other brother's name is, and had a great conversation, very friendly. They were great.
Sure.
We told them we're opening a brewery, and I think I'm not joking. I didn't even realize that they had an IPA called Apocalypse IPA until that day when we had the conversation with them, and we were there drinking it. We're like, hope you don't have a problem with us calling our brewery Apocalypse. And they laughed. Oh, no, don't worry about it. We're not like that. No big thing.
But that was a problem. That was a huge problem.
Well, it turned out to be a problem.
Yeah.
I got a call later from Chris saying, hey, the board of directors because apparently that board of directors, has a problem with the name. We need you to change
You're like,
it.
my board of directors.
Yeah, right. I was
is
like,
fine.
let me get back with my board of directors. Hey, Aaron, they don't want to. They took issue with it. We believed there to be enough market saturation with the use of that name in both beer and wine, which are generally sort of lumped together when it comes to naming rights and copyright issues and things like that. You could at that time you could do a search on Google for Apocalypse beer or Apocalypse wine and find just a ton of different beers and wines with using that terminology.
Okay.
So we felt we had a case to fight against them, to keep the name, and so we hired an attorney and sort of did the back and forth thing for a little bit, and finally I realized there's no way we can afford, even though we believe to be okay using this name, whether or not we're right, we can't win because we can't afford to win. So ultimately, I made the call. If I left it up, I think to the others, we would just have fought until we were broke. But I was like, you know what, we can't let the brewery go just over a fight with another brewery. So we decided to change the name. And
do you think that was fair of them?
I don't know. I guess I could see. Well, if it had just been 10 Barrel, I can see where they were coming from as a small brewery trying to protect their naming rights. I don't believe it was fair because I believe there was so much market saturation that there was a lot of Apocalypse stuff out there. So why are they coming after me and not any
Everybody
of these
else.
other people that have? Ultimately, what it likely was part of the negotiation process. This is just speculation between them and Anheuser-Busch during the buyout process, because they announced not too long after sort of we settled that they were, had sold to Anheuser-Busch and were becoming part of that multinational. And so it likely was just a loose end that Anheuser-Busch was all tie that up.
Totally, because they're now owned by Anheuser-Busch.
Correct. They are part of the Anheuser-Busch.
And I think and this is just me as, first of all, your friend and at that time, and still to this day, a very loyal customer to Apocalypse and Opposition Brewing. A lot of us were super mad.
Oh yeah, a lot of people were pissed.
Super mad.
And they were pissed at me for saying, you know what, we're gonna go ahead and change our name because again, I guess that's kind of one of the things I like about our sort of demographic. We're all very respectful, good people, but we're a little feisty. We don't like to be pushed around,
right.
And that was being pushed around. And so
I mean, to the point where I won't drink 10 Barrel beer.
Yeah.
I just won't, because I just feel like for me that's the little thing that I can do,
right.
Because it irritated me so much at the time. I was just like, this is so not fair, and it happened to a lot of other breweries across the country. Right.
I have heard that it is not uncommon for large. I'm trying to be very
you don't have
legally. I have heard that it is not uncommon for much larger companies to sort of do that to smaller companies, and it's sort of one of the unfortunate aspects of the legal system is that you don't have to be right. You just have to be able to outspend your opponent. So when it comes to things like copyright issues or trademark issues, whether or not you have a legitimate case doesn't necessarily matter. It's whether or not you can afford to argue that case in front of a judge. So if you're small and have no money, which we had no money, because it had all gone very recently into opening the business in the first place.
Exactly.
We could not sustain a legal battle with because I don't know who was paying the bill at that time, 10 Barrel or Anheuser-Busch, but I'm sure either one of them had millions of dollars
and they weren't going to stop.
Outspend me, and they would have just they weren't going to
stop.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people too at the time when Anheuser-Busch bought them, it for those true microbrew people, it was just this idea of like sellouts.
Right.
What a bunch of sellouts.
I had that same opinion at the time, and I think it's a legitimate sort of gripe to have, but and Chris Dennett and I have had this conversation many a times. You know, the American dream is to start a business and make a ton of money, right, and retire early. And so, you know, I don't know how 10 Barrel went about it to set themselves up to be purchased by Anheuser-Busch. There may be some backstory there. But if a little guy starts a great business and gets offered, you know, 10, 20, 30, however many millions of dollars by some larger company and chooses to sell that and take that money to the bank, you know, how can you begrudge them doing that?
You can't.
You know, that's a business decision.
Because as I just said that, the idea of that happening to you,
Right.
I would be like, oh my gosh, congratulations.
Right.
That's so amazing. I'm so happy for you.
Yeah.
So I guess it's just because they were picking on my friends.
Yeah,
It made
right,
me mad.
right. Yeah, and it made us mad too. But so, you know, the whole multinational buyouts of these smaller craft companies is a very interesting debate in the craft
Right.
beer industry. You know, how does that impact the industry? And I think more than anything, it doesn't necessarily have to. It can. But it doesn't have to impact the beer of the company that
Exactly.
is being purchased. Right. It is possible. In theory, for a very large multinational to buy a smaller-ish, you know, 10 Barrel wasn't particularly small, I don't think at the time, but small compared to Budweiser, right? It is possible for a large company to buy a small brewery like that, and the beer to remain just as good
great.
as everyone remembered it. I think of course it is possible that it doesn't, right? I think where the bigger issue comes is how does the multinational then use that to leverage marketing and sort of a market manipulation to suggest that you know, these quote unquote small breweries are actually independent small breweries not owned by, you know, a major corporation. You look on any of the labels of these smaller breweries that have been purchased, you won't find the whichever multinational it is, because Anheuser-Busch isn't the only one to do it.
Right.
You will not find anywhere on those labels anything that says, you know, owned by or subsidiary of, you know, Miller Coors, Anheuser-Busch, whoever it may be. So, you know, they're really trying to sort of get a hold on the craft beer market with you know, what some might consider some subterfuge there, because
And again, I agree with you. It's especially in this world where we tend to be super negative. You know, at the end of the day, if it happened to you, I would be so incredibly happy for my friends who made this amazing, successful
Right.
move in their career.
right.
So, whatever. Good luck.
We have no plans to do that, by the way. So
Right.
we're just happy as clams running the shop the way we want to run it.
Do you
So-
want my people to call the people over at Anheuser-Busch?
Yeah, well, you know, if I got a knock on the door and they had a bunch of suitcases of cash, you know,
You're not gonna slam
You
the-
never know. I'm not
Yeah.
going to put myself in a position to automatically say no. But we have
Exactly.
no plans of doing that. We're quite content operating our tiny little
I like
business
it.
over there out of the garage.
Well, we're going to wrap up a little bit, but if you are listening, go see Nick and Aaron and Dennis and Penny and all of the regulars at Opposition Brewing on Ross Sandley.
Yeah, just down the street from you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's behind you'll see the Human Bean coffee stand, and you guys are right back there.
Yeah, you got to pull in. You got to pretend you're getting we tell people who don't know how to get there, pull in like you're getting a cup of coffee, because we're sort of hidden. We're hidden
Yep.
behind the coffee shack.
It's fantastic beer.
Well, thank you.
You guys do an
We think
amazing
so.
job.
Yeah.
Yes. All right. Final three. Best
All right.
advice you've ever been given, Nick Ellis.
Best advice. I gotta say it was from my father. I think like most best advices are. And he told me, particularly around the time I was starting this business, don't be afraid to take risk. I think particularly when it comes to the business world, you don't really ever achieve any kind of success, or you limit the reward you can get from said business if you never are willing to take any risk. And you know, you look at all of the biggest names in business, the most successful people in business, and they've all taken in their lifetime huge risks, many times failing and getting back up and taking yet another risk. And so I think that's a fantastic piece of advice.
Yeah. Tighten your gut and butt clench
Yeah.
a little bit. And
Right?
just go for it.
Yeah, sometimes you just gotta take the jump.
Okay. If you ever left this place, what would bring you back? What would you miss the most?
like besides our friends, who we have so many fantastic friends here now in the Valley, I think it goes without saying the geography. My wife and I and our daughter now love the outdoors. So rafting, camping, hiking. I'm a runner. I love running, both road running, trail running. We just have so much opportunity for that sort of thing here. The Rogue River is right in our back door and has some of the greatest, multi-day whitewater rafting opportunity. And, we quickly got sucked into that, knowing our own gear and love doing that. So, if we were ever to leave, and I don't know why we would, that would be the thing that we would miss the most and that would draw us back the most. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, you guys post a few pictures of your kid on Facebook.
Just I'm one of those parents now. I used to complain about those parents, and now I'm one of them. I think it's hard not to be.
She's so cute.
She's a sweetheart.
Those cheeks.
Yeah.
Just alone, you should post
the chubby cheeks.
Oh, man.
Right.
She's a cutie pie.
She is a cutie.
All right. Final meal, final drink. What would that look like?
I thought about this.
Of course you
based
did.
on your other podcasts.
You and I are big foodies.
And We've
cooked together in the kitchen before. We share recipes sometimes.
Yes.
Like you and I are definite foodies, so I knew you'd like this question.
So I think it depends on the time of day that my last meal occurs.
All day.
All day. So, So I think I would start in the morning with shrimp and grits, but not any shrimp and grits, Trish.
Mm-hmm.
Your shrimp and grits.
Mm-hmm. Those South Carolina grits.
To the world out there, no one makes shrimp and grits better than this person right here.
Why, thank you, sir.
Best on the planet.
Man, thank you.
You got to pair that with some champagne because it's morning and it's breakfast, and that's what you drink.
Agreed.
So shrimp and grits and some champagne, I think, for breakfast. Lunch is a little bit of a harder one. I think a nice, like a really good juicy burger, some sweet potato fries, and a rad beer. There's so many out there. I don't know. I don't have like a favorite beer because there's like 1,000 of them that I just can drink no matter what. So a really good beer and a burger, I think, for lunch. And for dinner, it's probably got to be some sort of Italian, risotto. Probably something with risotto. I love risotto. You can never get risotto in restaurants, so whenever I get the chance to have it, I do. With the manicotti and, of course, red wine because, I make beer but drink wine most of the time. So,
yes, you're a big red wine fan.
Yeah, so I think that would.
What a day.
That would be a good day. I try and make all my weekends like that, actually.
Same here, right? You
the
never
food
know.
might change, but champagne, beer, wine. You got the trifecta there. And
I agree. Someone. I think Chuck and I were talking. It was a Tuesday night, and we're cooking up filet and
right.
Some nice whatever vegetable, and opening a great bottle of wine, and we both looked at each other like, why not?
Yeah. We have access to it here in the Rogue Valley, so you might as well take advantage of it.
I agree.
Yeah,
all right.
For sure.
Nick Ellis, if you're listening to this podcast on iTunes and you like it, please subscribe, rate, and review. It helps other people find us. We're also on Google Play, and you can check out the video portion of this podcast at ktvl.com. Just click on features and then off script. My friend Nick Ellis, thank you so much.
Thank you, Trish.